Um, I'm going to go into them and Mr. Autry. I still want to stick with the game and you because they can look up this box score because there's the first day of Yankee Stadium, the first day of Wrigley, the first day of Fenway, all these ballparks. This ballpark, it's their first day. This pitch from Tommy John. By the way, good control pitch.
Oh, yeah.
Always knew where that ball was.
Never gave you enough to hit, basically. Yeah.
Where did it go? When you.
I think it was a low and away fastball, and I hit it over the center field fence.
Really?
And I hear stories from Harlan and whoever was playing for the White Sox in those days, how Stanky, who was the hit manager at the time, was sort of making fun of the pop-up. I hit the center field, and then he said something like, "Oh my God, that is over the fence." So yeah,
It wasn't.
but it was I think we lost the game 2-1. That was the only. I think it was the only one. I'm not sure.
Yep.
But that's sort of.
These people that you got to meet because of the acclaim and the team and your signing, Ronald Reagan becomes the President of the United States. Mamie Van Doren is a post-Marilyn Monroe actress. Walt Disney will be forever known for our great-grandchildren who just know the word Disney. I go back to, there's a guy named Gene Autry. I don't care where you go with it. I want to actually just listen. You say whatever you want, because to who's ever listening to this with their grandchild that might be in their 70s or 80s, it's their time to enjoy whatever you got to say. Gene Autry is an actor and a singer, but I'll let you take it from there.
I mean, as a kid growing up, we'd go to the movies on Saturday and we'd pay a nickel to watch the Battle of the Cowboys. Autry on one end and of course Ray Rogers on the other. And all of a sudden, this hero of mine wants me to play baseball for these Steelers. And of course, I got to know him on a very, very personal basis. And I know things about Gene Autry that I would not share with anybody because they're very, very personal. But he was just a wonderful man. He and I, they didn't have kids of their own, but I think what he did is sort of adopted all of us as his brother, his children. And he was always very, very nice to me. I don't remember anybody ever saying that about Gene Autry. And I have been involved with people that worked with him, on every level. And, that's pretty uncommon.
You get to be friends with, almost sort of like in a son-like way, to America's Cowboy, the picture of American classics. What would you do? I mean, it's a valid question. Would you go out to eat? Would you go over to his house? But he would chat. Where
we've done all that stuff, but he would do that with almost anybody.
Really?
I think he might have had his favorites, but he never let people know that was the case. So I've eaten at his home, I've eaten at his restaurant, I've eaten at his hotels.
Right.
I've been with him.
And the conversations? I just enjoy, I told you, I enjoy just
talking
talking
about
to
everything. We talk about, his being on the road and his radio shows. We had a guy named George Goodell was sort of his attendant.
Right.
And so I know a lot of things about Gene. A lot. Great guy.
Now the key thing is the kidney, right? You've paid your dues in the minors. You've had some pieces of some seasons at bats in the major leagues. You hit the first home run in Angel Stadium in history for the Angels, and that same season you end up at the Mayo Clinic.
Right. Well, I mean, I think it less than half the year. I think the 3 weeks where I hurt my hand, I had 16, 17 home runs, almost 50 RBIs. Hit 2 home runs in 1 inning in Boston, which had not been done before. And I was making all the plays, stealing some bases, but then it hit it. You never know your destiny's time. And
a teammate was the one that noticed his buddy, right, is in a bad way. So I believe you went from laying in your bed to being taken, right, to this guy's got to get looked for. Go over that experience.
Well, Clyde Wright and I were roommates, and as you alluded, we lived at the beach in Newport Beach. Going to the school or something. But he actually carried me on his shoulder. I can't remember whose car it was. Went up to see Dr. Jules Rosinski up in Anaheim. We were able to ride over to his office. And it didn't take him very long at all to realize what the deal was.
Was it just a tremendous amount of pain back there?
It was an awful lot of pain. I had really high blood pressure and really, really bad headaches. And of course, he put me on some medication, which alleviated all that kind of stuff. But they did some kind of a testing or IVPs and they did these programs where they knew the kid. And of course, the guy that took out the kid was Dr. Henry Weir, the chief urologist at the Mayo Clinic. He was operating on the Shaw of the Lawn the same day. So, he was the best in the world. But he said that when I pulled my kidney, it was almost like a piece of wood. It was just, it had deteriorated to that point. So I had to go. In those days, you know, they took them out, they didn't retire them. And mine was beyond that anyway.
So you were put on. I mean, do you remember the plane ride? Do you remember going to the airport? Do you remember being? You know, was that all? Is that all a fog to you?
That's all a fog. Yeah. No
So,
recollection.
how long was your? The season's going on. The Angels are playing ball, and their most notarized player of signing in their history is at the Mayo Clinic.
Well, and of
How
course,
long were you there?
I was there about a week, I think, and actually, my teammates actually made the trip to Minneapolis. They were away games to the Mayo Clinic, and I remember Fregosi and Knapp and Bob Rogers, some of whom I just saw in Clearwater when they headed to Fregosi Kidney, made a trip up to the Mayo Clinic, and it was really wonderful. And about a month later, I get a call. I'm home rehabbing before I go back to Anaheim at the end of the year from Vince Lombardi.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God,
He's a Green Bay Packer coach, and of course he's following all this stuff.
Right.
He invites me over to the camp, and he presents me with football from the first Super Bowl. Kidding me? Signed by all the Green Bay Packers. Oh my God! So wow, I've had a wonderful.
You have had. I was about to say, buddy. Let me tell you, you have literally. I hope you know that attitude of being loved by your friends and teammates. I hope it gets you through any rough day. You have literally had one of the most charmed lives.
I've been blessed.
Don't
think I don't appreciate it.
I know because I'm generated to you. I told you I want to come here when this is all over. I would like to just visit, but you go back. That's what you know. You're an athlete. You're not just an athlete, but you're at the top shelf of athleticism across our country. You went back to playing that season. You recovered. That's.
And I also went back to finish my education, which was paramount. That's something that was going to happen, and it took me 3 semesters. I would report 6 weeks late in the fall semester, but I would, you know, catch up, you know. And again, that was part of my contract. So I didn't worry about show-outs and parts.
Sure.
And of course, my regimen was not easy. It was all pre-med stuff. So I'm really glad. I was so happy to get that.
So you got that degree not long after the kidney injury.
Well,
You
it
finished
took
it
me
up.
3 semesters.
Yeah.
I think I actually graduated. My class graduated in 65. I think I graduated in 67.
The next full season of Major League Baseball. The kidney injuries in the past,
Right.
but the effects of it.
I wasn't quite the same.
I know.
And my teammates noticed that. And they say after any major surgery, usually takes about a year and a half. But I was never, ever the same. I would have fits and starts. I would be pretty incredible.
Because you knew your ability, did it lead you to frustration, being patient with your body, doing what
I never really thought about it too much, except retrospectively as you look back, then things sort of come into focus. And then you look at the numbers, and then it starts to make some sense.
A lot of people leave pro sports. There's 67 living Hall of Famers, and with this project, we've done a third of them. A lot of them, they're human beings. When it's time to go, right? It takes a while to digest, right? And there's frustration, there's anger, there's bitterness. I'm not going your retirement. I'm going, right, the decade of the 60s.
Right.
I grew up knowing who you were before I was in the clubhouse.
Did you use my card to put in the spokes of your bike?
The first one I can see it in my head is the one with the sky in the background, the 1970 card with you with the Angels. I know it just because I was also your typical American kid. You were playing and you were doing your job. Was it the second year, the third year? Did you just know to focus and do the best that you could? But now you're older, you're able to reflect. Was it frustrating knowing that you were once here, then there's an injury, and you've never gotten back to... Johnny Bench said the same thing, by the way. He actually gets emotional about it. He wins the MVP and has a portion of his lung removed. And then they had to go and break the ribs. And he said, I may be a Hall of Famer, but I may have done all these things after the ribs and the lung. But I know I was never the same of what I was before. That's my question, the same as to Johnny Bench.
Well, I never looked at it that way. All I knew is I always tried to do my best. I always hustled the most I possibly can. But what more can you do? You just let the chips fall where they may. It's hard to sort of at the time you're sort of involved with stuff to be retrospective because you really don't know what's going on.
Sure.
As I look back, it was pretty obvious.
I end this interview with all about family, personality, love, being respected. You have always been, including since I mentioned and associated, of service to others. Even when you were a player, there's 25 guys on the team. There's one guy that's going to be of service to the others. And that means that all the teams have a representative because we're looking out for our future and our children with our retirement. Explain when you first became the representative for a team, for all of these things, because you were literally, you are one of the causes of the Major League Draft, but you were part of what we now know as you're not a product that's owned by a team. You actually have some rights, but you were part of this Marvin Miller era. When did you first go to represent a team?
I was with the Angels,
Yeah.
and for whatever reason, I just got along with everybody. And I think I had a better relationship with the blacks and the Latins than anybody else on the team because, you know what? I treated them the same.
I know. This kid, before it got here, I vividly remember, it's hard, it was almost like we were friends before we did this interview. I feel the feeling because you've reached out, you've been nice to me, you understand what this is all about. Nothing's changed as you got to your birthday last week. You're still the same DNA. You went to work for 24 guys on a team as Marvin Miller was almost trying to be run out of the game. It actually, being of service to others is part of not an injury, not lack of ability. It's not, this interview doesn't end with the way others.
There's a lot to do with your mom and your dad.
I know, that's what I wanted to get to. Your dad lived a life of service to others. You're stealing the ending right there. You left baseball, actually, you had a contract that a team that was worried about their finances was going to have to pay you an amount of money. And they're worried about, I got to pay this guy this much money, and can I justify it with our books? But you let it go. For the people that get angry and fight with their family and fight with their bosses and fight and argue, I got to know. You left the Angels, went to the White Sox, were representing the Union, and then your next step was the Royals.
Right. And they started talking about me being the player rep for the Royals too. So I think that was sort of the tipping point for it. And as I told you, Senator Callis, whom I'd known from the Angels, was an assistant partner. He's crying. He's a general manager of the Royals. He says, Rick, this is not me. And then, of course, I get calls from Marvin Miller. It's suitable. I said, let it go.
Why?
Because the game was more important. They didn't need to focus on me. And at that point, it was very polarized with the fans and the baseball players. They thought we were making enough of it. They didn't really realize the ramifications of how short our careers are and what the pension means and all that kind of stuff.
So as we sit here today, when you leave the game, your family, a lot of them leave Wisconsin and come to this town of Gainesville. We're sitting in your brother's restaurant right here, which is much more, if you're ever in Gainesville, this is much more from being in all these different states and cities the last 7 years. This is a restaurant that when you're in Gainesville, you've got to come to. Give a little bit about this restaurant. I want it on YouTube.
My brothers were all in the restaurant business, and they had notorious restaurants here in Gainesville for years called Joe's Deli. They're sort of an institution in this town, famous for the 5-foot gator tail, blah, blah, blah. And right across from the football stadium and down 13th Avenue and so on and so forth. But then the encroachment of, Burger King and it sort of went by the wayside. But then my brother had the opportunity to invest in Ballyhoo Restaurant. Of course, Ballyhoo is a huge restaurant. It's sort of a sports bistro, sushi, steak, prime rib. It's got it all.
Plus music entertainment.
Plus music almost every night. And of course, football coaches have their shows here, and the basketball coach has their show here, and Mary Wise, the volleyball coach, has her shows here, and so on and so forth.
And then the date of this interview, how is the basketball team doing with their coach, Billy Donovan? Because this will be looked at a year from now, 6 months from now, years from now. How is this team doing right now, right today?
Well, they're number one in the country. They're the number one seed. My mom, age 95, and I attend all the home games. She's sort of an institution in this community, so it's all worked out.
And the actual close of this is, I'd like, you said that you weren't able to look back on your career with the post-kidney thing because you're so worried about just giving 100%. I do want you to look back. Your dad was of service to others, trying to do his practice, right? Your mom is of service to 9 children. You're the oldest of 9 children. You took your wife's car in for an oil change today, right? You spent time, right, making sure everything was okay with your mom this morning. We have scheduled 4 different times to sit here and do this. You're a substitute teacher. You've been a batting coach, right, at the local university, where some of your players that you've been coaching have spent time in the major leagues. Are you aware that you're really not an athlete, but according to your teammates, the guys that you coached, the car in the service this morning, helping me with an interview, do you realize you basically lived a life of service?
I should have been a priest.
I'm serious though. Don't be humble on me.
It's just my nature. I just can't help the way I am.
You speak it like it is on Facebook.
I coordinate these wine jazz tastings for the baseball teams. They make $20,000. It's just,
Does it feel good?
I love it. When you're giving,
That's what I wanted.
it feels good. I have no guilt whatsoever. Yeah.